Good evening and welcome to Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I'd like to welcome you to the show. And I, again, would be remiss if I didn't thank my dozens and dozens of listeners from all over the world. A special shout out to that individual in Russia who continues to download me every week faithfully. Appreciate that. And also appreciate, obviously, my listeners from all over, down in Australia, Canada, the UK, Singapore, Brazil, Italy, of course. I'm very appreciative of that. And believe it or not, I do like to peek at statistics. When you are uploading these things every week, you want to know, is anybody out there? And the short answer is sure. So anyways, folks, again, thank you for tuning in. And I have a wonderful guest. And he was introduced by a previous guest, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome this week's guest, Elijah Santoro. Notice I curled the R for you, buddy. Elijah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I am glad to have you on the show. Gino did the introductions, if memory serves,
Yes.
and great guy. I'm going to try and get him back, because I think we were having a good conversation, and we started going down a couple of tangents that I usually don't go on. I usually stay away from politics and religion, but, let's get started. So who'd you vote for in November? No, I'm just kidding. And what religious feast will you be practicing over the? No, I'm just kidding. Elijah, again, welcome to the show, and tell me a little about you. Where are you from, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm from a small town, southwestern Pennsylvania, called Perryopolis. Very, very small town, and I graduated from Penn State. I come from a family. I'm the youngest of 6. I come from a big Italian family. Yeah,
And Catholic too.
No, actually, we're not.
What?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, we are religious, but we're not Catholic.
And recording.
Yeah.
We're out of here. This is even worth it at this point.
I don't. I don't have the. I don't.
Gino,
have
did
the,
you just gasp?
I don't have the pepper. No, it's the horn. I don't wear the horn. I know. I said, but no, yeah. So I have 4 older sisters, 1 older brother. So I basically have 5 moms, and so it's a little bit about me.
Well, now we're all caught up. All right. Well, thanks, folks, for tuning in. No, it's funny you say that, because I am the youngest of 4, and I had 2 sisters and an older brother.
Yeah.
And I get the last statement. I totally get that.
5, yeah.
Now let's talk about your family. Good Italian family. You know where in Italy you're from?
Yeah. So actually, my mom and dad just came back from a trip for the first time ever being in Italy. Yeah, and it's on my keychain. But so I'm a mix of like a bunch of different sections, but I know I think my mom's side is more northern Italian. I know the exact town, and a little bit of somewhere in Rome. And then my dad is from Naples. Okay. And then some parts Sicily.
I was going to say the dark hair and the dark kind
of,
I get it.
And then I know, so my dad, I don't know the exact percentage. My dad is close to like a good amount of Italian.
Okay, so let me get this right. You're not Catholic and you don't know where in Italy. Come on, man, that's strike 2.
Bad.
Don't make me end this. We just started.
It is pretty bad. But my mom does have a little bit of Irish, and it's always been weird for me because I have the blue eyes and like freckles, but dark hair. It's always been like weird. Yeah, but.
Well, I'm going to shock my listeners. I'm not 100% Italian either.
Really?
That's exactly what I said. No, in fact, I know, right? And I call it Italian Impact. I'm the Impact, folks. I'm the Impact. No, my mother's not Italian at all. She was, funny you said Irish. I think they're like Scots-Irish, German, a lot of German. On one side, her family was 100% German. The other was like Irish, Scots, West Virginian. Because when we do DNA, it literally shows like West Virginia. Like I'm like, oh, there's a originating bloodline from West Virginia, so I guess it is what it is. So let's talk a little bit about you then. So obviously Pittsburgh guy. I say Pittsburgh loosely, but I know Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So what'd you do in school?
So
and don't worry, folks. We're going to excite you in a little bit when we talk a little bit more about what he does.
So I graduated in 2023 from Penn State. Sorry, not RMU, but I first initially went in as an engineer. But then during COVID, because COVID hit my end of my freshman year and then sophomore year, at the end of my sophomore year, I ended up switching to major in advertising, and I minored in theater. And there's a whole story behind why, if you want me to get into it.
We absolutely do, sir, because this is all going somewhere. Because this was how the introductions were made. When I said to Gene, I said, hey, I'm always welcome if you got any recommendations. And he said you, and then I won't say who, what, where, when, why, but I'll just say is I'll wait for you to say it. So keep going.
Okay, so
and it involves a lot of money that you owe somebody.
Right, yeah. So we'll go, I guess, to the beginning. I grew up again. I'm the youngest of 6. I have 4 older sisters. I grew up in like ballet, tap, jazz, classical ballet.
From your sisters, or you were doing it?
Well,
and I'm not making fun of you.
No. My sisters were doing
it.
At
least not in front of you, but go ahead.
So my sisters were doing it, and to go even farther back, I was homeschooled most of my life. My family was homeschooled.
That's the weirdness. I get it.
Yeah, very weird. So my dad worked, my mom homeschooled us, and my sisters did dancing. And so that weird point in time when your parents are like, okay, like you're young enough, like what do you want to do? Like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
You're like at 6, I don't know, 5, and they're like, what do you want to do? You want to do soccer? You want to do this? So
for sports, not for your career.
Like, get out of the house. Like you've just been sitting in here, kind of a thing.
Not for your career.
Like,
okay, I got it.
But yeah, like, do you want to do an activity?
Like you're 7 years old. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You should be working.
Yeah, exactly. So my first thought was dance, because I would always go. I was homeschooled, and then I would always go to their classes. And the reason why we were homeschooled was just because of, but my mom wanted to do schooling and religion, and also because of dance, because my sisters would go up to Pittsburgh to do dance. So it was like to be flexible. So I would go sometimes and see them, and I just like kind of fell in love with it. So when I was like old enough to do something, that's what I picked. And that helped open up a whole boatload of, I'm a straight male in southwestern Pennsylvania.
I appreciate the disclaimer there. By the way, no one in Pittsburgh, let me tell you something, no one in Pittsburgh will make fun of a man that does ballet, and I'll tell you why.
Well, they will south of Pittsburgh.
Well, and they're not Steeler fans, because I think the greatest receiver,
Lynn Swann
was a ballet guy.
Well, also, I might be a little wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure Gene Kelly is from this area, and because he wanted to be a Pittsburgh Pirate.
Oh, I think he is somewhere.
And Gene Kelly's like I love Singing in the Rain. I love tap is my favorite form of dancing. So I got into music. I got into dancing. I ended up going to public school, 8th grade.
But that was strange.
It was terrible. It was the worst. If I could go back, I would have stayed, because what happened was like the stuff, how kids are. Stuff comes in, and you're like, I don't want to dance anymore. But my family knew I wanted to.
Right. What, kids making fun of you for dancing? Really? Huh.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was just.
I'm buying it.
Yeah. So I was a basketball player too. So I loved basketball. But what ended up happening is I kind of like hid away from dancing, or tried not to. I didn't put too much time into it as I used to, or as I should have. And then when I always wanted to be kind of an actor, because what I watched the Newsies, and it was it's a play, but Christian Bale was like the lead in it. He was dancing and singing, and I loved it. And then he was Batman. So as a kid, I saw a dancer and then Batman. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to act. Like, that's what it is. But by the time high school came, I'm from this area. I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. So I went to go be an engineer, and then COVID hit, and then I started doing TikTok. Because I was stuck at home. I was bored, and I was home alone because my mom and dad were stuck in Arizona. That's a whole other story. My dad travels for work. He works for Rycon Construction, and he travels. And he was down there in Arizona, so my mom went, and they were just there for like basically the whole COVID year. And I was at home, so I started doing TikToks, and it kind of blew up. I grew to a little over 700,000 on TikTok, and I started getting modeling jobs. I modeled for Manscaped. I modeled for like. I modeled for like a few different. I'm
not laughing at you, but I know what Manscaped is, and I'm like, what?
You want a razor? You want 20% off? You can use my code. But I started modeling, and then I got into a modeling agency, Doherty Talent Agency in Pittsburgh, and because of that, I got more modeling jobs. I got a background role in the chair that was shot in W&J, and I kind of was like, wow, like, is this possible, kind of a thing. So that was the end of my freshman year, going into sophomore year, that was exploding for me. And I was still doing engineering, but it was remote, and I didn't learn a damn thing.
Welcome to the American education system.
Year, well, I barely learned anything freshman year.
Again, welcome to the American education system.
But I succeeded in my classes, like in physics, in the weed out classes of freshman year.
Right.
Weed out classes of sophomore year, I couldn't do anything. I did not learn a single thing.
But it was more focus than ability. You just was like, nah.
It wasn't even that. It was almost like it wasn't a way that I could learn over Zoom.
Right.
I just couldn't learn over Zoom. I had no motivation to learn over Zoom. Plus, all this TikTok stuff was going, and I was really into acting, and I kind of got like this sense of like excitement that this might work. So on top of that, I was just like kind of like not motivated, disregarded like all my classes. And I was like, I need to switch. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to change the theater, but I didn't know Penn State's theater school was amazing. It is. I apparently have people go to Broadway.
What campus were you at?
Maine.
Okay, so you did go to Maine.
Yeah, so if in order for me to do musical theater as my major, I would have had to take a whole another 4 years. No way. So what I ended up doing was I was doing kind of advertising on my own with social media. And so I was like, I'll just major in advertising, have it as a backup, minor in theater. And when I also minored in theater, I asked certain teachers if I can be in like the classes that normally a minor wouldn't take. And it doesn't mean like I was the only one that ever took those classes. It was just like you have to ask the teacher.
Right.
So I like took like certain tap classes and dance classes and acting classes to get for my minor that normally I didn't need to take. And so that's what I started doing. And I was a cheerleader at Penn State. That is a whole nother thing that I don't even know how I got into. Yeah,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm
Yeah.
just like you said. These are like this is not
Yeah.
normal for me. I'm
No,
like,
it's
wow.
not.
I mean,
It's
like
not at all.
I'm just kind of blown
Yeah.
away, to be honest with you.
So that's also during COVID. It was my sophomore year. Me and my one buddy, we were friends with the cheerleaders because why not? You know,
Straight fellas, I get it.
And cheerleading isn't a NCAA sport. So during COVID, they had to practice off campus. They are. I don't want to say anything bad, but cheerleaders are definitely like on the bottom of the list when they are used the most in every single university.
I get it.
They go.
No,
to,
I actually
They
get
go
that.
to every sport. They have a national competition. They have to do all these parades and stuff. Their year never ends. You know what I mean? They have to do baseball if they go to playoffs.
Right.
They have to do basketball if they go to like all this stuff, football. So,
But they get nothing from the
they
school.
get nothing. We're put in. We don't have a facility, so we have to like borrow facilities from the track or this, and our locker rooms are like closets and it's full of like it's like 40 people, 60 people. But anyway, so they don't practice on campus during COVID, and so they couldn't tell us we couldn't come. So, being, jerk college kids,
You went in front of the campus.
we went to their practice off campus, and we were just met, being jerks, having fun, and trying to learn how to do backflips with the cheerleaders. And the coach was like, if you're going to be here, you might as well learn how to stunt. So he taught us how to stunt. And then by the end of my sophomore year, they were like, do you want to join the team? So going into junior year, I was an NCAA, like the D1 college.
Technically, you were right.
Yeah, D1
wow,
college.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, if you're going to be here, you might as well just do it.
I got to go on the field for the Penn State football games. I was at the Whiteout games. My senior year, I got to go to the Rose Bowl. I got to go to March Madness.
Did they at least pay for that for you guys? I was going to say.
They didn't pay for my book bag, but they paid for that. They paid for that, yeah.
Penn State. It's not like they couldn't afford it.
No, tell me about it. Well, especially with what I owe. I don't even want to talk about that, but yeah. Yeah.
So now let's kind of walk back a little bit. I'm curious about one thing before we kind of jump ahead on the acting. Doing that as you did theater as a minor, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay. Doing theater as a minor. What does someone learn from that? And here's why I asked the question. You see a lot of people that, and I hate to think that Hollywood somehow has like the monopoly on the best, the most talented people. I don't think they do. In fact, I think there's a lot of people that are much more talented than the people that act in major films. But a lot of times it's a look. It's a something. Hey, I saw her. She was a waitress I got, the director's attracted to her. She's want to be in a film. Next thing you know, she's in a film or the guy or something. Or like I said, maybe they saw them on an acting. I think was it Matthew McConaughey, the one that was on like a commercial or something. He got discovered just doing a commercial. Next thing you know,
possibly. I'm not too knowledgeable on that, but I know Matthew McConaughey. Like I know like a lot of actors like they didn't really go for acting.
Right, and that's where I'm going with it. So,
yeah.
But if you're telling somebody, listen, you should do this. If they don't have that look, and I'm not being critical, but I think I'm being honest. If they don't have that whatever it is the director's looking for that moment in time. First of all, they probably don't care what your degree is. But at the same time, it's like you could be the most talented person in the world and go nowhere. Why would you tell someone to get that degree? And I don't mean that as an indictment on the fact that you got the degree, because I think it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious what you tell people that say, you know what, here's why you get the degree.
So are you saying a minor or a degree in musical theater in general?
Either one.
So I'll just go based off my perspective. So I wanted to do minor mainly because I wanted to force myself into that world as much as I can. And also because of that, there was more than acting that I love. Like I love dancing, so I couldn't get those dancing classes. I mean, I could, but I couldn't get those like those advanced ones. So, but when it comes to acting, I'm a huge believer in if you're passionate about something, there's no one that's going to teach you more than yourself.
I agree with that.
So, and I will say, like, I went out and Gino's taught me more than any teacher I've ever met in my life.
That's like 3 shout-outs in one show already, Gino.
Yeah. So he's taught me more than anyone ever. Like, so I messaged him, and I would say it's not really about what your degree is. It's about kind of who you know. And that's the other thing, too, is I tell kids, like, I went to Penn State kind of in my mindset thinking they are one of the biggest alumni schools in the nation. So it's who you know.
Right.
So same thing.
It's all networking.
Yeah, it's all networking. So you don't have to go for musical theater. You don't have to go for acting. Will it help you? Yes. Will it hurt you? I don't think so. It might hurt your bank account.
As I say, I don't think it would hurt you, but I'm
yeah.
My thing is I see a lot of kids. Listen, I teach full time now at school.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of kids get degrees, and either one, they don't use it, or two, it's like, by the way, kid, you didn't need a degree for that, whatever that is. Like, there's a lot of fields out there you don't need. And I don't know that acting is or isn't one.
Yeah, I don't. It's good. It's funny you say that because I've always kind of said if you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer, I don't know what the point of school is, but or like something.
Unless you're considering Robert Morris University,
or unless you're considering
I teach here.
Yeah, but when it comes to like stuff like, because I feel like acting is so much of like yourself that you have to learn yourself. You have to kind of understand how you are, and I will say college is a big learning curve. Like you're on your own for the first time.
Right.
You're away from your parents. You learn so much from that you may or may not learn without it. And there is just kind of like, it's kind of just how you approach things. Like if you approach college in a way that benefits you, then yeah. But if you don't go to college and you approach it in this way that benefits you, then yeah, it kind of, I almost feel like there is no wrong way.
You know what? I agree with that. And I'll tell you why. I'll throw something at you. The one thing that really blew my mind, I've been teaching now for about, not including the time when I was military faculty as a civilian, about 10 years. I was an adjunct at Pitt for about 5 years. I did a hot minute at Seton Hill, did a little bit at Carlin. I've been at Robert Morris since 2019. I was an adjunct, and I started full-time last year. I quit my government job and said, screw getting paid a lot of money to not work hard. Think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So I quit the government. Thank you. A lot of people have to take a pause on that. So yeah, you're making tons of money and you're not doing crap. I mean, there is this thing called a conscience. So I had one. So I quit. But what blew me away was most of the time I was always teaching graduate level. And I am not saying this is 100% true, but most graduate students are more mature. They've been through the undergrad. They know like, hey, I don't need this degree. I want it. I'm willing to go into debt. For some reason, though, the undergrad, and I know in some ways age is just a number, but there's a lot to be said about, and it kind of to your point now, that there seems to be no self-reflection when they're younger. And so they're just going through the motions. Kind of like when you said, like I was taking these classes and I couldn't learn anything. Maybe that was a maturity. Maybe it wasn't, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying it could have been a million reasons why you weren't learning that. But when you picked your degree, it was like, this is really what I want to do. And as a result of that, you start looking inside and asking yourself the tough questions. Hey, can I do this? Do I want to do this? Why do I want to do this? I mean, I'm sure you didn't want to go 6 figures into debt for something that you had to have the passion for it, and you had to really think about that. A lot of people, they just go through the motions in life, even whether they're kids or not. But I see that a lot, in especially the younger ones. They don't do that, what am I really getting out of this? They don't ask themselves that.
Yeah. So I'm a huge believer in everything happens for a reason type of guy, and I mean on top of it, my older sister went to Penn State. She was the only one. So ever since I was little, I kind of had like this cult.
I know.
I
know how they are. I know how they are.
Yeah. So I actually toured Robert Morris too, but I actually did tour Robert Morris.
I wasn't here then at that time, or you'd have took it.
It was 2019.
That's the year I was an adjunct. That was my first year as an adjunct in ED, so you wouldn't have saw me.
Yeah, but I did tour here. But I'm sorry, what were we were on?
We were making fun of Penn State kids.
We were making fun of Penn State, but it was like the maturity, the maturity level. I still believe like I wouldn't change anything that had happened, other than maybe a few things I said to people. But when it comes to, I feel like what I did was what I needed to do to be convinced of what I was supposed to do. So if I would have just went out of high school and been like, yep, I want to do acting, I don't know where I would be.
Right.
I don't know. I have no idea. But because I went, and I kind of went in a way that you might think wasted time, or someone might say that, I think because I changed to engineering, because because quote unquote my hopes were crushed, whatever you want to say, it came back stronger. Like whenever I switched back to then wanting to do acting, it came back 10 times like more passionate. And if I wasn't at Penn State and didn't hit COVID and I didn't have to go home and was alone, and because I was alone, I started doing TikTok. Like if I didn't do all these things, I don't know if I would be there. Do you know? You know.
I do. We're gonna. I'm gonna come back right after this little commercial break, but I want to talk about that because it was something. Gino and I went down the same path of, is there some, God, I hate to say the word, but like a divine intervention or a path that we're on. But folks, I'm going to talk the taboo subject of religion when I get back. So we'll be right back after these messages. Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Palucci Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Palucci Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. And we're back. How was that for a quick break? I do want to follow up on one kind of thing, because you said you were homeschooled and you obviously had a very religious family, not, Catholic, which, is an Italian. On your Italian card, there's a little hole. We need to punch that. Says,
I already have it. Yeah,
okay, good. Can't shop at the commissary.
Yeah,
Got
yes,
it. All right.
yeah.
But
I can only do this on weekends.
You can only, it's right.
Can't do it during the week.
The folks who are listening and can't see he made a certain type of hand gesture that Italians are very famous for. But growing up in your faith, and then you kind of felt like, it's not really what I do. Do you feel like it's a calling?
My faith? Or?
No, the fact that the path you're on right now. I mean, in other words, is it something you want to do? Do you feel like, no, you know what, this is something deeper?
I think I'd like to say both. I would like to say both, but it's also because of what I believe in. Right. So people believe in different things, and it is what it is. They believe in what they believe in, but because of particularly what I believe in, because I'm so passionate about it, now I think it's my calling. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Whereas if someone doesn't believe that there is a calling or a divine intervention, does not mean that that's not their calling in their terms. Do you know what I mean? It's
perfect sense.
It's what,
yep.
in their mind, it's what they're supposed to do in the universe.
No.
In my mind, it's my calling from my higher power.
I totally get that.
Do you know what I mean?
I totally get that. And I'll tell you why, because that was one of the things, and I'd said this before. I said when I was doing the documentary, I said I struggled with, and I'm going to ask you this one, part of the reason we want to get into, like, I don't know, say entertainment, arts, whatever you want to call it, is, look, we all want to showboat a little bit. Let's have no illusion. No one says, listen, I want to make a movie, but I don't want anybody, I want to be really humble about it, so I don't really want anybody to watch it. Like, you're not doing that. You're making a movie because you want people to watch it. And you want, we're all prideful to some degree, and we all say, I want people to see me. And the TikTok's a perfect example. I've got 750,000 followers. When I put something up there, I want people to see me. There's a little bit of you're not being humble in a way, but that's not necessarily a sinful pride either. And so when I was making the documentary, it was one of those things that I struggled with. I said, man, I'm going to do something that I have to sell myself. I have to tell everybody how great it is, how great I am, how great, I have to do all these things. But it wasn't until I was doing it and met people and went, you know what? This is a good thing. The people, I made people happy. And I didn't have to like basically sell myself to do that. Do you think like that? Are you prepared to sell yourself? Because I've got a contract right here. I'll just take your soul, sir.
I actually am so happy you're on this conversation because there's a lot of reasons why I want to do what I want to do.
And that's really what it comes down to. Why?
There is a good amount of reasons. And so for one, I love performing. Ever since I was little, I was a dancer. And just performing, and we'll skip ahead to when I was a cheerleader. When I first saw my dad and mom come to my first Penn State game, the faces on their face, you know what I mean? Like, just I love that.
Oh,
and
so it wasn't utter shock. Like I thought you were a receiver.
No, my dad and mom wouldn't let me quit ballet and tap when I wanted to in public school because of how things were going. Like my dad would never let me,
so they believed in you.
Yes, and it wasn't more like that. They knew I loved it, but because of what was
they weren't going to let you get bullied out of it.
Exactly,
basically.
They knew I loved it, and I appreciate my dad so much for that because he is someone that's not like a normal dad. Because out of all these other I feel bad for kids who may or may not want to dance or that, but there's such a stigma to it that they maybe never did because maybe their dad was like, you ain't doing that. So I want to be kind of like the shining, hopefully, a light for kids to. I'm from Western Pennsylvania, Southwestern Pennsylvania. I grew up in dance, and now I'm doing this. It's not impossible.
That's right.
Do you know? So it's
I know exactly what you mean.
It's kind of that. It's kind of one. I love acting. I love performing, and also it's. I kind of tell this to some people, but I love the thought of. I love method acting is like fascinating to me. So I love the thought of like becoming like someone else. For like a movie, for a scene, and actually feeling different, and then trying to go back to Elijah Santoro. That's a whole nother realm of something that I sometimes talk about, but it fascinates me because one, I love performing, and I'm kind of competitive. And I one time watched this interview with Will Smith where he used the method act.
Is this before the slap?
Yes, way before he stopped. He used the method act, and I forget which role he did it for, but he had a hard time going back to Will Smith. Don't quote me on this, anyone, because I might be messing this up. But I just remember seeing that, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. He had a hard time going back to Will Smith, and I'm kind of competitive. So I was like, one, I love performing. Two, I love this whole method acting fascination. And three, I want to see if I can go back to Elijah faster than Will Smith can go back to Will Smith. Oh. So that's kind of what makes me love like this acting thing. And I will say this again, if I could just act and just be able to pay my bills, I don't give a crap about anything else.
Interesting. So you're not in it for the money? That's kind of interesting.
So I'm in it for the money to be able to finish my mom and dad's house.
No, you know what? Listen, I don't care who you are or what you do. Very, very few people. It doesn't even matter what profession you're in. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an actor. Most people are want to get paid. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
Everybody and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think where it becomes wrong when it becomes consuming, and then you're just doing anything for the money. Then you've crossed the line. But just saying, listen, I'm a good actor. They want to pay me a lot of money for a job. Why wouldn't you take it? Mm-hmm. I'm sure Jim Caviezel, who's a very devout person, or Jonathan Rumi. These are guys are very, even Mark Wahlberg's become a very faith. They're very active in their faith, and they've kind of been more public about it. I'm sure they're not like, well, I don't want to take your money because I believe in God. I don't think that's what anybody's saying. So I don't fault anyone for wanting the money in any career. I just think that, like I said, that it's the consuming. And the reason I say that is, I'm, God willing, going through the whole approval process to get the movie on a streaming service right now. God willing, a few more weeks. And I struggled with whether I should even charge for it. Like, legitimately. I was like, man, I didn't do this for the money. It was a beautiful story. It was in honor of a man who passed away. Like, I didn't want to do it for that reasons. But of course, when you put on a streaming service, they're like, you got to charge some. So I charged the minimum. But then I kind of thought in hindsight, and I'm like, man, considering some of the crap that's out there, and I'm like trying to be the nice guy. I mean, I should, but
My take on that is, if you love what you did, you love that documentary, do you want to do it again?
In fact, we're going to be starting March. We're going to talk offline when we go to dinner here.
So it's something that you would want to do again. You need money for it.
Speaking of that passion.
You need money for it.
That's right.
Because otherwise, if you keep doing things I understand.
Well, number one, I'll be divorced because my wife was so pissed because I spent so much money on it. But that's number one.
Right, but so it's kind of like it's that in itself. It's not really in it for the money. It's in it. I love this thing, and I want to be able to sustain it and be able to do it again. I need money.
Bills.
I got to pay bills. I got to be able to afford the next thing. Which the next thing I have a bigger idea, so I need to pay for this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when it comes to money, yeah, you should absolutely charge for what you did.
Well, I did.
Exactly.
We're just going through the approval. God willing, it'll be done. I'm hoping it's a Christmas gift for some folks.
And I honestly, you should not feel bad in any way, shape, or form that you did that. You put your time and effort.
You hear that, God?
Yeah.
You heard it from him.
Yeah, but I mean, again, you can, but you have to think long run. Like if it's something that you can sustainably do for free, but can you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
I just know that international.
No one can. No.
You know, it's funny because when you said, let me ask you before I take it by your story, what was the first legitimate acting job you did?
First legitimate. Oh man, a very very long. Well, it was kind of like. This is hilarious. There was this show called His Place it was like the Christian TV channel called His Place. And I was on that. It was years ago. My sister was on it, but it was filmed somewhere up in Pittsburgh, and the pastor of the church that I went to was like one of the main people on it, and I was just like, I had a few lines on there, and that was like years ago, and I don't even know if I could find it. But
I'll be looking for it now.
But go ahead. It was on TV. Yeah, it's called His Place, and I was like, and that was like the first thing I did, and then the second big thing was I was a background role for The Chair, and then recently I was on The Obelisk with Gino.
Okay.
Which was shot last August, not like 2023 August, and it just finished post-production, and they're having it's kind of come out sometime this year. But that was like the first big shoot I was on, where I was like a day player actually, and I was there the whole month, and I was kind of behind the scenes guy and doing PA work, and I loved it. Oh, I learned so much.
Well, that's what I was going to get. When you jumped in, to your point now, because this is a good one. When you were on site. I'm guessing there were things on site you learned. It was like, no way I was learning this in school.
Oh. I learned more in that month than I learned, again, my entire life.
Sorry, Penn State.
I learned more.
That's like strike three for Penn State.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be more. So, but no, I learned more in that month than I learned on. And this is one thing too. I'll say, do everything. Take that risk. Do everything. I took a risk and did this job. You know, when I'm financially like. Not doing. I'm not terrible, but I'm not doing great because I just got out of college. But I went and took a risk, and I learned so much. I'm going to say yes to everything. If it has to do with what I want to do, I'm going to say yes. And the amount of knowledge I learned, and because it was like an independent film, and they knew that we were all doing it because we wanted to do this film together, not because we were in it for the money, but just because we're all people that like love film and wanted to do this film. They were all so nice to me. Like, there was a lot I had to learn. Like, they'd be like, hey, Elijah, go get the 300B. And I was like, what? It's like a light. And I was like, what? I don't even know what that is. And they're like, it's one of the lights, you know? And and I was like, okay. So there was just like, it was just like learning terms, learning this, learning that. Like, because what I do now is I have a videography production company. So if I was going to do work, I wanted to do it if it's as close to what I want to do as possible, right? So I started this company to like do this. So I have a camera. I've been buying my own equipment. I have a ton of equipment now. It's ridiculous. But I went and
the government's going to forget your college loans anyway, so you're good. Just keep
hopefully.
going. Rack that sucker up.
So I had a camera on set to do behind the scenes because the whole idea was to get BTS of the film and possibly do like maybe a short documentary on it.
I get it.
Yeah. So I'm learning. They're helping me with my camera stuff, like teaching me like, you know, your ISO should be this, your shutter should be that, you should be this, because I never learned it on my own. I kind of just been all grinding out, and I was learning lighting, I was learning this,
But you weren't learning that as an actor. You were learning when you went to acting. You're learning how to act. You're not learning how to do editing and production.
No. But now that's like what I've been learning. That's like I've been learning so much of that, and now I understand both sides.
And I think that's the advantage of a small production. To be honest with you, it makes you. It's like anything. You're forced to wear different hats.
The other thing is that it makes you appreciate everyone on set.
Yes, I get that.
Everyone on set.
See, I jumped in both feet.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a background in this. I knew editing. I guess I could do sound and editing and all that stuff. But I never did film. I did radio, I did podcast. Yes, folks, I'm the voice at 2 a.m. When I went on there, two things. One is I was like, man, like, am I qualified to be doing this? Well, yes, you're writing the checks. I mean, it makes you qualified. That's sarcasm, but not really. Two was, I'm like, I'm filming. I literally, my first project is an international documentary, filmed in multiple countries and multiple languages. Like, hey, listen, I want you to pick something really difficult to do as your first project. Like, here it is. But man, you learn so much by doing. And, you got to the point where now you've literally said, not only have I learned how to, okay, got it. I got the acting pieces. Like, that's just more going to be time and practice.
Still
and just
working on
doing
the acting.
Well, but I mean, it's something. It's a time. Nobody's Shakespeare their first night out. But the result though is it sort of has moved the needle on what you want to do, because now you want to. I don't necessarily saying it's you're wanting to keep it solely to the technical side, but it does sound like you moved a little bit. So what? I kind of like the technical backs, behind the scenes stuff too.
Yeah. I do love that side. It's not what I want to do for the majority of my life. I will say that. I came to appreciate it, and I love that I know about it, because I eventually do want to like create my own films, like independently, and that's what I love about it. That I know that now. I know some things. There's a lot I still need to learn, but it also I feel like knowing both sides helps helps you in acting. Like knowing. Right. The back end of everything, the behind the camera, does eventually help you in acting. So I'm appreciative of that, but yeah, it's been rough. It's been
no.
It's been rough learning all that.
I tell you what, I get it, because one thing that I'm kind of curious is when you're acting though, a lot of people they might not see themselves as like being looked at from multiple angles. For example, again, I'm going to make fun of myself. Two things. I can't stand to hear my own voice, and I can't stand to see myself. I have a small thing in the documentary. It's a documentary I'm talking about and I got a side profile, and I got the standard Italian face, not the chiseled one like you, the other one, the guys that are about 5'0" with it, So it was one of those. You look and you say, I'm not going to be an action star. It would be nice. That would be kind of cool. Hey, if Nicolas Cage can do it, I mean, anybody can do it. Sorry, I think there's some truth to that statement, as much as I like Nicolas Cage. But, my point being, though, is there's that other thing that brings. And I don't think people a lot appreciate that, they're not just looking at you how well you can read the lines. There's a bunch of other things. Now, in your case now that you see the camera, kind of what you're kind of alluding to is, does it change the way you act now? So now I got to realize, now the camera's coming at me from this angle, not this angle.
So I don't think it changes the way I act. It kind of, because there is sometimes like you want to know where your eye line's at. Like when you ask the cameraman, like, because sometimes when I was on set, Gina would say, where's my camera line? Like how far, where can I look? Where is the camera at? So I wouldn't really say it would change the way I act. It's more so that I feel like I understand more what it is going to look like. Because the thing is, if I'm acting, I don't want to know. Like if I'm in the moment acting, I don't want to know. But when I'm reading the script or reading the shot list or reading this, I want to know, okay, what is this picture? Now I can possibly know, because I understand. Maybe I understand what equipment they're using. Right. I understand the lights now. I may understand the zoom lens that they're using, so I might know how it will look, how punched in it is. Whether or not it's natural lighting or artificial lighting. It's completely different. So now I know the mood maybe of the movie, and now I know all this. But even then, it's something that you don't really want to take into acting, because you don't want any outside influence on that performance.
You think it's like maybe overthinking?
Yeah, because then it's overthinking. But when it comes to understanding film, that's what I love. That's what to understand film, inside and outside, acting and behind the camera. That's what I want to know. But if I would do an actual acting job, I would want to push away what I know behind the camera as much as possible.
Just look at the camera and
exactly.
read your lines the best you can based on this mood.
Exactly,
right.
But I love the fact that I understand film. Like I want to be able to understand the actor, the cameraman, the equipment, the way it works, why. Like why would you use this equipment? Because it creates this. You know what I mean? So that's what I like to know.
And for the record, I'm not picking on Nicolas Cage.
No, you're completely fine. I understand.
But but it goes back to my point. There are some actors and actresses in Hollywood, and you scratch your head, you go, they continue to get top of the line, movies. That's one of the things about this whole field, that it's like, what is it besides your uncle being, what was his uncle again? Was it Coppola?
My
Nicolas Cage, his uncle's like Coppola. No.
Oh yeah, I'm not too sure on that.
One of them, like him and Talia Shire, they're like related to. I'm not picking on. She's the one that did Adrian and Rocky.
Okay, yeah. Adrian, yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And also, she was Connie in The Godfather.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right. Her uncle, her and Nicolas Cage are cousins. No, this is not TMZ. So all right, we're gonna jump up. But I think they're both Italian. So there's the connection to the show. All right, good. So what are you working on now?
So as I mentioned earlier, I have a production company. It's called Resolute Productions. So what we do is we do a lot of social media videos, whether it's commercials, vertical videos, photos, prints, or whatever, for businesses. So I worked a lot for a guy. His name is Kyle Carnahan. He has Superhuman Fathers. He's based out of San Diego, and I would travel there once a month, and he does life coaching. He helps people with fitness and just kind of like business, all that. So he's a pretty well-to-do fitness coach, and I would help him with his VSLs. I don't know if you know what a VSL is, but ads, social media. So we do that for many businesses. There's Marbills Jewelry that I do in Bell Vernon, and then some restaurants in Pittsburgh. So I do that with the company, but I eventually want to turn the company into doing feature films. Yes, actual films. So right now we've been working on doing short films. I have one that I'm trying to get done, but we're trying to do short films, hopefully once a month, and post them on YouTube and get them in the film festivals and just grow.
Right. Exposure is everything.
Yeah. I was recently this past August, I shot a film with my buddy. He's from Florida. He's a writer in London, actually. He has an Instagram. It's called Livre du Cine, and he's a writer. And we were trying to do this feature film together, but we were like, let's just do a short film. And we did this short film. It's probably about 30, 40 minutes, shot amazing. It's called The Round Table. It's about a bunch of friends meeting up to play poker. So that will hopefully come out next sometime in 2024 as well. And then waiting for the Obelisk. So right now, doing my business stuff, and turning in self-tape submissions like crazy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I have a backstage that's account along with an IMDb account, but I just, anytime I find something that I like it, I'll submit and try to do a self-tape. And one, I love doing self-tapes because it's like acting. It's like getting the juices flowing and constantly working on yourself. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. Nothing like keeping busy. That is the one thing that I've always wanted to. I did I was an extra in a Netflix show, and that's when I got the bug. I was like, oh.
Do you know what show it was?
Yeah, I just don't like to advertise it.
Okay.
It was Mindhunters.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was there, and I was, right there. So I'm getting here. I'm sitting right. I'm the extra sitting right beside the table. So I'm right behind the girl, and they're talking and they're reading their line. And this is why I'm so cynical of actors and actresses. They're reading their lines, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, this is stupid. I mean, I thought the lines were terrible. Mm-hmm. I haven't even watched the episode. I just know a minute because I saw some stills of the episode.
Yeah.
Meaning they didn't cut it.
Right.
So I know a minute. But I'm thinking, man, this is dumb. And I was talking to somebody at work, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was a minor. He's like, oh, it's a great show. And I'm thinking post-production is amazing because when you're there. But to your point, what was really cool was being on site and seeing all of the moving pieces.
It's ridiculous.
And I was like, I kind of fell in love with it. I always wanted to do something, and I was going to start something a few years back, and something happened. The timing wasn't there. This is the divine thing. And then when a friend of mine, he passed away, I was like, I ain't waiting. And that was the impetus for me saying, calling a buddy of mine who does independent films, and we're off and running. And the funny thing, though, was, I'm thinking this is just go grab a camera, we're going to go shoot it at a chapel. It turned into an international freaking documentary with, multiple trips overseas. I'm like, mind blown. But my point, though, is it's kind of like what you're saying. You got to keep. It's the same thing I tell kids when you're going to apply for a job. I said you got to throw 100 resumes out there. It's the same principle. You got to audition for everything, and you could audition for 100 things. Maybe one calls you. Got it. But it's still one more than you had before.
Right.
So, it's the level of effort until you're really a known commodity where someone's looking for you versus having to find, we're looking for somebody between, ages of 25 and 30, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
And then you just happen to get in that way. But you do it enough times and people say, I know that person. I've worked with them before. We'll bring them in. Having said that, I know you're young. I know you're starting off. But at the same time, you do have some wisdom now because you've done it a little bit. You've been on sites now. You've done your own films. You've been on the social media, not just on the social media, but on the social media where you have been viewed by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So with that being said, kind of final thoughts, what do you tell people? Like, what kind of advice do you give people that say, I want to get into this field, I want to do something? Hold on, let me get my pen and paper. Go ahead.
Something I'm very passionate about as well is we briefly talked about, do you believe that there's a calling and do you believe this and that? I'm huge in believing in like energy transfer, whether it's religion or not. No matter what, I believe that there is this thing with like what the energy you put into something is what you get out of it. What comes around goes around.
I agree with that.
And huge on the golden rule. Right. Treat others how you want to be treated. Treat others with respect. Treat others even if they disrespect you. Treat others with respect. Right. Be a genuine good person and have good communication skills. That goes above and beyond. Like I'm telling you, when it comes to anything that I've gotten, when it comes to my roles, when it comes to me being on the obelisk, I've gotten because of other people, not because of my talent at all. I got on the obelisk because I reached out to Gino and I showed him my passion, gave him my energy of what I have, and in return he was like, hey, I have this. Do you want to be a part of this? It is, I will say 90% of the time, the amount of energy, effort you put in, and if you're genuine,
right,
it'll come back around, and that's solely what I believe in.
No, I believe that. I 1,000% believe that. I believe that you just don't screw people over, man. No. Just take care of people the best you can. It's
even
right.
If they screw you over.
And you know what?
Turn the other cheek.
But not only that, if somebody takes your cloak, give them the other one too. You just like I'm not afraid. And I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying I am not afraid to live my faith publicly.
Yeah.
And so I'm not afraid to say that I listen to the words, of Jesus, and I try and live that way. Yeah. If somebody's going to, what do you say? If somebody's going to take you to court, try and settle beforehand. If they want to take your cloak, give them the tunic too. It's like, it's just stuff at the end of the day. There's no reason to get bent over, screwing people over for a few nickels.
No.
I did something I never thought I would be able to do, and I'm telling you, ever since I did that, even though it was just an extra, it's been a passion of mine. I don't care what I'm in, I would love to do a film because it's what I want to do. I don't have any illusions I'm not going to be in Hollywood. Frankly, I lived in Southern California. I wouldn't want to live over there and be in those. There is something about this. You talked about energy, and yes, folks, we are wrapping up, but we're going to finish this on a very negative and down thought. So please, if you want to tune out now's the time. No, I'm just kidding. But no, you talk about that energy, and when I lived in that area, because I was stationed in Southern California when I was in the military, and there is something that I don't know how to put my thumb on it, but there is something you've got to give up to get, and it ain't hard work either. There's something deeper there. And I'm just like, you know what? I would never do that. I would be totally content to be in a 20-minute, independent film with people that I like doing something that was fun than saying, oh, you know what? I'll make $20 million if I just sell my soul and, cut my right hand off to be in a, please put me in another Marvel movie. It's like, ugh, because that's exactly what the world needs, more Marvel reboots. Thank you. But I get it. And that's the key, follow your passion is something I've always told people. And I also tell people this, and last kind of thought here. If you get good at something, you'll do okay for a living. I mean, unless it's just something that's completely antiquated and, hey, I'm a wood polisher for, 1800s floorboards. I get it. You're not going to make a lot of money. But at the same time, if you get good at something that you're passionate about, you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. You may not make $100 million. But you'll be okay. And I believe that if you're treating people right, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree.
All right. How can people follow you or get a hold of you?
Yeah. So, it's Elijah.Santoro on everything. Absolutely everything. TikTok, Instagram. I haven't posted on TikTok in probably a year.
Good for you,
but
buddy.
yeah, I hate the social media.
It's about to be banned.
That's a whole nother podcast. I hate the whole social media realm.
Oh, folks, we're going to have him back because every time we're both going to be airing out on this one. I tell you what, I wouldn't even be on it if I wasn't trying to promote shows. That is the only reason I'm on it.
I didn't go into my social media realm because but there's a lot more in that, and yeah, I know.
Well, folks, look down in the description, and I'm going to have the real way to get a hold of him. So please check the description out below. Elijah, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. And folks, as always, I want to thank you for tuning in. I love saying this because it's just kind of funny because I can check the stat. To my listeners in Singapore, I would like to thank you as well. And to that guy or gal in Russia who's listening every week, I want to thank you. Do svidaniya, comrade. I think that's how they say it in Russian. But again, grazie mille per tutto. Thank you for my listeners, I miei ascoltatori. Grazie mille. And thank you all for listening. And as always, God bless. Have a wonderful week. And I will see you next time.